The little prince I raised by hand after grew up to be the male lead who exterminated his entire family. To save his life, he secretly offered warmth, using a pair of dark golden tubes that could see through others' emotions. He tamed the male lead into a black-bellied dog that seeks praise, and the wolf cub named is the royal werewolf incarnation, a rarity in 1,000 years. He was also the greatest threat to the crown prince's ascension, so he raised an army to rebel. He seized the throne, but constrained by the legend of not being able to overthrow the royal family, he imprisoned Shios in a cell. He tortured him day and night. 10 years later, he sent him to the madman's lair, allowing him to fend for himself. Watching the luxurious carriage pull up to the door, Elena ignored the provocation from her two siblings. She walked straight back to her room. In this villainous family, the 7 children fought to the death for status. After the deaths of the eldest brother, second brother, third sister, and sixth brother, the cold-blooded father not only mocked their incompetence, but cruelly ordered the children to abandon their emotions. With the script in hand, he had already thought of a countermeasure. What does a family massacre have to do with him? He just needs to do nothing. He would cling to the male lead without a trace, wait for the right moment to sneak away. He had only just fallen asleep. Suddenly, a shy voice came from outside the door. He realized that the door was not closed tightly. Elena hurriedly covered her mouth. Unless it is absolutely necessary. He doesn't want to see the male protagonist so soon. Wait until the footsteps fade away. He tiptoed to the door, just as I was about to close the door, but the door was suddenly opened. Elena lost her heart. Suddenly jumped into Hades' arms. The two little ones locked eyes. It's over, the plan they just made is ruined. But up close, they found he really was quite tempting. The original text mentions that with this face, he killed dozens of fiancés. In the end, he became a bloodthirsty maniac. Elena immediately pretended to be a little pitiful and apologized. As she was preparing to slowly retreat back to her room, Shios grabbed her hand and wouldn't let go. You are very beautiful, sweet words on your lips, but your face is expressionless. Because of the girl's snow-white hair and golden tube, Shios guessed at a glance that she was Rodgar's little daughter. He tilted his head to look at the room behind her. He scanned the surroundings unabashedly. There was no soft pink big bed. No cute toys adorned with jewels. All of this showed that his status in the public house was very low. Actually, Elena once had a princess room like this. But now those things belonged to Courtney. However, he preferred the attic now. Because to have power, one must prove their abilities to the Duke. Once I regained my senses, I found that Shios had been staring at me. I answered the questions quite confidently. My mind should be fine. It seems you are of no use. After saying this, I turned and left. Among Rodgar's treasures, the most precious is the golden boy. And Elena's eyes are purer than anyone else's. But compared to the invulnerable Duke, he appears weak and cowardly. So he has no value for use at all. Soon, the Duke convened a family meeting. He will teach the prince as a mentor. Therefore, they will receive education together here. The siblings eagerly offer their blessings. The atmosphere becomes suffocating. Hugh remains very calm. Elena is quite surprised. Those jewel-like, dazzling golden eyes have the ability to see through others' emotions. Yet until now, she hasn't noticed any fluctuations in his emotions. The Duke continues with his usual arrogance. He opened his mouth to warn the crown prince to behave himself. In the face of such intimidation, Hughes remained completely unfazed. Instead, he gave a flawless response. Bored, the Duke planned to leave. As he walked to his youngest daughter, he couldn't help but frown. Useless thing. Elena tightly grasped one foot, constantly reassuring herself that it was okay. As soon as the Duke left, Courtney deliberately provoked the helpless prince in front of Hughes. Everyone wanted to step in, but Hughes likely wouldn't let him bully him. Although curious about what would happen next, it would be troubling if she got involved. Sneaking away at times like this is the wise choice. Little did he know, as soon as he left, Shios followed right behind. Hearing the footsteps, Elena turned around to look. What does he want to follow me for? This action immediately annoyed her ignored sister, but Shios suddenly grabbed her arm and wouldn't let go. Standing there without a word, Elena glanced back at her sister. She saw Courtney bathed in red light. Startled, she immediately looked away. This is a feeling of anger. Pointing at the trembling Elena, she sarcastically said, I see you want to rally him against me, right? Beside them, the fifth brother continued to mock this foolish parasite. If it weren't for father's orders not to touch him, they had long since taken his golden eyes away. This brought back bad memories for Elena. Her father had once said this to her. So every time she hears it, she instinctively closes her eyes tightly. Seeing the girl's helplessness, Hugh fell silent for a long time, until Courtney brazenly called his name. Hugh was suddenly surrounded by a gray glow. This color represents irritation. Who gave you permission to treat me so disrespectfully? The Duke only dared to change the title with his consent. The usually arrogant sister fell silent with her back turned. If her response was even slightly off, she would be suspected of insulting her father. It was the first time seeing Courtney being bullied. The way he was at a loss for words was truly hard to watch. After that, Shios dragged Elena away. Although she didn't understand why, at least they got away safely. After leaving the room, the two of them finally relaxed. Elena let out a sigh of relief. Before those crazy siblings come out, he needs to hurry back to the attic. But the boy keeps following closely. It's driving him crazy. At first, he thought it was an illusion. But after following for 20 minutes, it's absurd. What is he doing in such a rundown place? He can't possibly take him back to his room. Elena mustered her courage and said, Why have you been following me? The jerk was a bit flustered. He repeated himself, saying if he continued this way, he would reach the attic where I live. I could tell Elena was so angry she was stamping her feet. Suddenly, a white light flashed from Hughes. It was clearly the color of happiness. Looking expressionless, but unable to suppress a laugh inside, Elena hurriedly ran away, only to find that Hughes was also chasing after her. She panted and questioned, Didn't you say you wouldn't follow me? Hughes held onto the doorknob of the next room. I never said I wasn't following you. A misunderstanding made Elena's face turn red. Seeing the girl standing still, Hughes asked if she had anything else to say. Elena's face instantly turned red to her ears. She left with a good night, and immediately ran back to her room. With a bang, the door closed. Hughes murmured, You too. Disdainful, Elena buried her head in the pillow, tossing and turning in bed. It's really embarrassing. My father is being unreasonable. After all, I am his daughter. How could he let a stranger stay next door? But then I thought, if my father really cared for me, that would be truly scary. The bullying by the older siblings has long been tolerated by him. He has always given them his silent approval. I remember when I was just born, my father had a completely different attitude towards me. But at that time, Elena understood that the notoriously cruel and cold-blooded Duke would never smile so kindly. The man mumbled about perfection. After naming his daughter Elena, he thoughtfully instructed the maid to take good care of her. Clearly, in the novel, the Duke is very strict with the children. Why is he treating her with such special care? I thought it was a story of a tyrant father being healed, but unexpectedly, it is the father's covetous gaze towards his daughter's beautiful eyes. In the past, the father was surrounded by a white glow. Today has turned into suffocating blackness. Elena instinctively wanted to escape, but before she could react, her throat was tightly locked by a pair of large hands. Before losing consciousness, she vaguely heard that if one is born with the conduit of Rod, one should have avoided it in advance. Since then, father tested him many times, just to challenge his abilities. The book doesn't mention any related content, so when faced with threat after threat, Elena still maintained a radiant smile, only because she was afraid to admit that her father, whom she once loved deeply, was exactly that kind of person. Only now has he awakened. The Duke never treated her as a daughter, but simply cherished those golden eyes. In the end, she became a discarded failure. Elena comforted herself to endure a little longer, since the Hughes family would be exterminated soon. But it really had been a long time since she had seen that kind of glow radiating from pure happiness. Elena quietly moved to the wall, curiously pressing against it to eavesdrop. I thought he had gone to sleep early, but I heard cries coming from over there. Elena thought she was hearing things. She was immediately shocked and got up from the bed. The Emperor, who had no emotional fluctuations, who would dominate the world, was actually crying. What should I do now? Should I comfort him? But upon further thought, he's only 10 years old. Elena felt a conflict in her heart. No, even if it feels uncomfortable, there's nothing I can do. He has to stick to the plan. Don't do anything. But thinking of him all alone, only I can have a normal conversation with him. It should be fine to comfort him a bit, right? With this thought in mind, I walked out the door, but the next second, I suddenly ran back into the room. What if something unexpected happens? It could change the original host. And if I go to comfort him? He admitted to eavesdropping. As a result, the next day he had a nightmare that pricked his conscience. He got dressed and was ready to go out for a meal, but when he opened the door, a dramatic scene unfolded once again. Only this time, it didn't leap into his arms. Shios was sitting on the windowsill, staring at him intently. Could it be that he was waiting for him? As soon as he saw people, Shios became shy and didn't speak. Elena timidly asked if he slept well last night. After receiving a response, he quietly shifted his feet. With a glance back, Shios radiated a colorful aura again. It seems he is in a good mood. Seeing him leave on his own, Hugh silently followed behind. The sense of oppression was too strong yesterday. I didn't look closely. Now I realize he looks like a dandelion just waking up. The two of them arrived at the dining room, just as expected. There wasn't a single person inside. Elena was already used to this. In this crazy family, meals are divided into ranks. People like him, who have no ability, can only eat last. The aroma of tomato soup filled the air. Just as she was about to run to get food, Hugh grabbed her. Noble dining is served by servants. So he didn't understand where the girl was going. Elena was stunned for a second. Rather than explaining more here, she preferred to help the boy adapt to this place. Looking at the bowl of tomato soup, the boy actually found it quite nice. Elena couldn't help but feel a pang of heartache. The royal family must have treated her very poorly before. But when she was about to have her meal, the boy was staring at her. Why isn't he starting to eat yet? Does he have a grudge against food? So Elena added, I wish you a pleasant meal. After he replied with the same words, the boy finally started to eat. Thinking about this, it was the same just now. Why did I have to listen to myself greet him? Is he some kind of greeting spirit? Although he does look a bit like a little sprite now, with his shimmering appearance, he is still a young ferocious beast, and might even repay hatred towards his family with vengeance. Unlike before, when I would just foolishly cling on. Elena was weak and sickly since birth. Whenever she was on the brink of death, the cruel Duke would summon a doctor. As a result, the servants decided to treat her like air. Aside from the occasional bullying from her siblings, no one would talk to her. So Elena was like a living ghost. So he would never miss such an interesting scene. The little Hux burst forth with incredible strength. Flying debris almost hit him in the head. The legendary embodiment of a wolf, possessing a broader field of vision than humans and an animal's intuition. In everyone's eyes, you are a monster. Even Courtney couldn't help but exclaim he's really a madman. But the Duke was quite dissatisfied. Is this all you can show me? It's a complete mess. After saying that, he ordered his subordinates to bring over the practice swords. He personally demonstrated a perfect set of movements. When it was Hugh's turn, in less than 1 second, he chopped the props to bits. The Duke stepped forward. How barbaric and rude. Then he raised his hand and brought it down with a loud slap. Elena suddenly collapsed to the ground. She was trembling all over. Over the years, she had witnessed too much violence by the Duke. Now, just watching from the sidelines felt terrifying. At night, she rubbed her rumbling stomach. She truly regretted not eating something for dinner. At that moment, there was a sudden loud bang from next door. There were also bursts of painful sounds. In the novel, the Emperor subtly indicated that the Duke could cruelly torture Rias. Even if he dies, it doesn't matter. Speaking of this, Elena quickly jumped out of bed. Although the protagonist can't easily die, what if it's not like that? Thinking of this, he immediately rushed out of the room. He kept deceiving himself that doing this was not because of a guilty conscience. It was only because Hughes was his insurance. After knocking on the door, there was no response from inside. If he just barged in like this, he might end up being remembered by Hughes. He is very wary of those who are kind to him for no reason, but after much hesitation, he ultimately opened the door. As he approached the bed, Elena was shocked by the scene before her. Seeing Hugh, who was tortured by his father, he covered his mouth in terror. Getting closer, he discovered the boy's breathing was weak. He touched his forehead and quickly pulled back, burned by the heat. He had a high fever of 90 degrees. There was no time to think. He hurriedly ran back to his room. He rummaged through some medicine and towels. He poured a little bucket of water. He rolled up his sleeves with determination. He used all his strength to turn the boy over. All sorts of injuries are clearly visible. There isn't a single good spot on her body. She needs to bring down the fever first. Elena gently wipes the cold sweat from her. Afraid to touch the torn wound at the corner of her mouth, she helps her take the fever-reducing medicine. Before long, the temperature gradually drops. Then she applied the ointment on the boy. She carefully decreased the pressure, trying to avoid causing him too much pain. Tears as big as pearls rolled down. Who wouldn't feel heartbroken upon seeing that? Elena leaned on the edge of the bed, gently holding his hand. Only then did his cries gradually subside. Just before dawn, Elena quietly returned to her room. As soon as she opened the door, Hugh was sitting at the door waiting for her as usual. After receiving the desired morning greeting, he continued to stare intently. Why did you come out late today? Elena casually made up an excuse to brush it off, but that look clearly indicated disbelief. She asked him why she was asking that. However, Hugh suddenly dodged the question, just asking casually, "Let's hurry and eat." Rena was full of questions. Could it be that she was discovered? Although she was the prime suspect. But there is no evidence. After all, she didn't open her eyes last night. Her injuries are so serious. Today, she seems perfectly fine. Perhaps it's because she is the embodiment of a werewolf, so she recovers faster than ordinary people. After finishing the meal, Shios took her to the training ground. Wait for me to finish practicing here. Although Rena was extremely dissatisfied, she could only think about it in her heart. But he wouldn't obediently listen. He is a person with his own opinions. Can I go wait over there? He didn't want to see his father. Seeing the girl shivering, Hugh said it was fine. Great. Rena immediately ran towards the small grove. After sitting down, she sighed in relief. Thank goodness she agreed. Although that look in her eyes was exactly the same as when they first met. But what's wrong with wanting to be a good-for-nothing? Isn't it nice to comfortably ride in the main character's free ride? Lost in thought, she soon fell asleep. After a long while, a strong smell of blood hit the nose. Covered in blood, Shio-si slowly reached out his hand towards Rena, causing her to feel somewhat at a loss. Is he trying to hold her hand? After hesitating for a moment, he was suddenly grasped by the other party's hand, scaring him so much that he didn't dare to breathe. I noticed that the girl's face looked very pale. Her hands kept moving restlessly. Hugh thought it was because his hands were too cold. In fact, it was the body's instinct to want to escape. But he couldn't tell the whole truth. He thought about saying something casual. But instead, he said he wanted to touch her head. Because you did very well. After realizing it, I found the reason to be quite absurd. Yet Hughes believed it to be true. He bent down, with blood all over his head, acting like a lunatic, suddenly pretending to be friendly. Rena trembled as she raised her hand, feeling the male protagonist's head. How long does it take to touch it well? My hands are going to be sore. Having said that, the blood on his body is not like his own. Shusa's understatement. That was the Duke who asked him to practice with the monster. You can imagine it without looking. It must be a beastly duel. Coming back to his senses, Hugh had been staring at himself, hesitating for a long time. It seemed he had something to ask, but suddenly furrowed his brow. He abruptly got up and left, although it was quite speechless. But at least he's free now. He can finally touch the bed he's been thinking about. Now he can sleep peacefully. However, a few days later, during a sparring session, before the timer was even up, Joseph started attacking Hux. He barely managed to block the sword. The Duke did not stop this violation. As a result, he was taken advantage of. The sharp sword directly pierced through the tears. Seeing Hughes in agony on the bed, Elena was deeply worried. That's right, he's back again. She lifted up his clothes to check, although he was wrapped in bandages. But the technique is unfamiliar. Blood is oozing out. I know I shouldn't act so recklessly. Because years from now, Shios will kill his entire family. But even if the male lead's wound gets infected, it could cost him his life. Didn't you say you would definitely seek revenge? So you can't just die like this. Just as I was about to go back to the room to get some gauze, I was suddenly grabbed by a hand. I looked back. Shios actually still seemed to be conscious. Those eyes seemed to be asking why. I sensed that danger was gradually closing in. The hand that wanted to escape was firmly held down. I'm doomed. I can't think of a decent excuse. Let's escape first and talk later. Unexpectedly, in a tug, Rena directly knocked Hughes down. Fortunately, she turned in time and didn't touch the wound. But that was way too close. She really went all out. Elena suddenly covered her eyes, muttering to himself that it's just a dream. The boy was stunned after hearing this. Then he chuckled. Colorful halos surrounded him. Although this excuse was absurd, he could only force himself to hypnotize, repeatedly saying, "This is a dream that will be forgotten by morning." The boy couldn't stop holding back his laughter, but soon there was no more sound. The tightly clenched hand slowly relaxed. Even Lena herself couldn't believe it. She actually fell asleep. Could it be that she has a talent for hypnosis? In any case, she has temporarily passed the crisis, but her complexion is still very pale. Rena applied the ointment for her. Then she put on clean gauze. The main task is complete. In the future, after she takes down her family, she will escape. The sooner the better. Otherwise, if Hughes devours him, it will be over. Fortunately, there are these dark golden tubes that can see through emotions. As soon as you feel something is off, run away immediately. But I didn't expect that just a day later, things would already feel very wrong. Clearly, the shoe had already soaked through the gauze, dripping down onto his foot. Yet he still greeted me as usual. And the strangest part is, why is he so happy despite being injured? Could it be that he is testing me? Rena quietly slowed down her pace, preparing to find an opportunity to sneak away. Unexpectedly, Hughes actually waited for her. With no choice, she had to obediently follow. Hughes suddenly turned around and asked if she had something to say. Startled, Rena quickly denied it. Her limbs started to move awkwardly. Seeing this, the boy chuckled. After arriving at the restaurant, she surprisingly served him soup. She even looked at him with and wished him a pleasant meal. Rena was very confused. Why wasn't she cautious around them? Could it be that she really considered last night's events to be a dream? Just then, the door was suddenly opened. A servant pushed a dining cart over. This is a delicious dish prepared by the Duke for Shios. This shows that he has the Duke's approval. Looking at the crispy on the outside and tender on the inside steak, Rena couldn't help but drool. She quickly wiped the corner of her mouth. She should finish her own portion quickly. Unexpectedly, Shios handed over a piece of cut steak. Rena looked confused. It feels like if she doesn't eat, she will just keep staring. There's no reason not to eat food delivered to her mouth. After it went down, Rena's eyes instantly lit up. No wonder it's top-grade steak. Seeing this, Shios couldn't help but smile. I dreamt about you last night. Thinking carefully, it seems this isn't the first time I've dreamed of you. Last time in my dream, you held my hand, and Rena was so nervous she was sweating cold. Not knowing how to respond, she stole a glance at the boy. It seemed like this was the first time they had talked so much. After fidgeting for a long time, Rena asked him what dream he had. The boy was silent for a while. It was just a good dream. Strange, that can't be a good dream. Could it be that he meant something else? After speaking, Shios continued to feed. Rena, however, was troubled for a long time. She took the delicious dessert. Puffed up, he stuffed it into his mouth. Hughes was amused by his reaction. His expression seemed to say, why don't you just tell me about the dream properly? All you do is keep shoving food at me. How could someone have all their thoughts written on their face? But his response was indeed heartfelt. Although it started as a nightmare, in the end, it fulfilled his heart's desire. In the past days, knowing the food was poisonous, he still had to eat, because he was simply too hungry. Gradually, it became his daily routine. That kind of ordinary life became his long-held wish. Waking up in the morning and greeting each other. Everyone eating meals without danger together. Playing and learning with peers. And at night, peacefully falling asleep. It would be even better to hear a good night. That would be perfect. with a trembling heart, welcoming the new life ahead. But this wish vanished the moment I saw the Duke. It turned out to be from hell to another abyss. No matter where I am, in the end the circumstances are all the same. From the very beginning, there should have been no expectations. However, at that moment, he met a young girl. With shining, dark golden eyes, she resembled the Duke more than anyone else, yet she was the least like the Duke's child. Her name was Elena. A lot of interesting things happened between them. Hugh just wanted to go back to his room. Elena mistakenly thought he was stalking her. She found him useful, so she teased him a little. As a result, his face turned red instantly. For some reason, in that moment, he felt very happy. He smiled softly to himself, but at that moment, he had a blank expression. Elena definitely wouldn't know that. But after that, the girl blushed and said goodnight to him. His mood instantly became somewhat subtle. It was the feeling of a wish he had given up on suddenly coming true. Recalling the entire day, she was really unfriendly to him. She rudely peeked into his room. She even said some snobbish things, but the girl still said goodnight to him. Hughes felt a bit guilty. He silently told himself that just this point alone makes this place different from the Imperial City. While eating, Elena furrowed her brows tightly. Just a moment ago, he was in a good mood. How did it suddenly turn to a melancholy blue? Is it because he was worried that he couldn't enjoy the food he kindly offered her? It's really hard to guess what he's thinking. When she tried to drink some water to calm her nerves, she gulped too hard and choked. Hugh immediately got up, constantly checking if the girl was okay. Is something wrong? After speaking, he gently patted her back. Elena waved her hand, explaining that she just drank water too quickly. Hugh completely couldn't understand. But from Elena's perspective, the abdomen was cut. It's even more amazing that someone is still running around the next day. Hugh stared intently at the girl. Then he looked at his own quickly healing wound. Although he had the blood of the dead, she seemed fragile among ordinary people. Such a weak and helpless girl was still thinking about helping him. It seems he still doesn't know. Actually, Hughes has remembered from the very beginning that there is no kindness in this world without a reason. But the girl made him break that rule. So he wanted to tease the girl again. Shouldn't you take some medicine if you're choked? I see you have a lot of medicine in your room. Seeing his flustered reaction, Hughes chuckled. Before Elena planned to escape, he invited the girl to watch him train. That's right, Elena came again. Because she really couldn't bring herself to refuse his eager face. But looking at him this way, his physique is still quite small. What will he be like when he grows up? Probably to the extent of tearing people apart. A provocation from Joseph came from the side. Reina showed no weakness. Why provoke him for no reason? Joseph angrily held the firewood. You came to watch me get punished, didn't you? Elena snorted. It seems he violated the couplet's rule last time. These days, he has to live as a guard. Seeing him ignore him, Joseph threw down the firewood and stepped closer. Just as he was about to take action, a sudden chill ran down his back. He saw Shios coming with a long sword in hand, his eyes faintly revealing a killing intent. Joseph couldn't believe it. Is he a monster? How did you recover so quickly? In a panic, she grabbed Susie tightly. Lena hurriedly covered her eyes. Susie knew she didn't want to witness the bloody scene, so he warned her with words only. When did I allow you to be so rude to me? If you have nothing to say, then just get out of here. Joseph was furious. He raised his hand to slap him. Enough, came the voice of Duke Rod. Faced with the terrifying pressure of the Duke, he still wanted to provide the girl with a sense of safety as much as possible. The Duke inquired about the reason for the fight, although he didn't look at his daughter even once during the entire time. Elena couldn't stop trembling. In his eyes, the dark aura surrounding the Duke instinctively made him want to run away. After a while, the Duke left with the troublemaker, and only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. Hughes suddenly grabbed his hand. Then let's go. Although I really want to ask him where he's going, I can only follow him anyway, so I might as well be a bit obedient. But what's even more unsettling is that for a moment, I actually felt more at ease beside Hughes. In the future described in the book, I would have decisively extinguished it, the big boss of his whole family, knowing that I shouldn't get too close to him. But somehow, my heart seems to have a mind of its own. Halfway there, Hughes suddenly turned around and met my gaze. Is there a place you want to go? But after thinking for a long time, Elena didn't know where to go. Hugh clasped his hands together. He came up with a good idea. Elena, what do you usually do at this time? The girl stammered as she spoke. I read in the study. Upon hearing this, Hugh took her to the study. This, however, left the girl in a dilemma. If I stay with him all day long, I might get caught up in a storm. So he made a bold decision. He prepared 7 or 8 excuses to decline. He thought it would definitely work, but he saw Shosi with his brows furrowed, looking so dejected. He was simply adorable to the core. A stray little wolf is waiting eagerly to be taken away. It feels like deja vu. The boy looks up and wonders, can't I wait for you outside too? He fiercely rejects this thought in his heart, but his lips are honest. Hugh, who received the agreement, grins and replies, then I'll wait for you here. He sees Elena nodding with a smile. Hugh praises her, saying she looks cuter when she smiles. After closing the door, the girl's lips involuntarily curled up. When she finally reacted, her mind suddenly became clear. So it turns out she has no resistance to good looks at all. She actually surrendered without any fight. Looking back now, she is still quite lovely, but we still cannot be complacent. After all, that lovely Shios will one day destroy the entire empire. In the novel, Shios' childhood is merely a small subplot that highlights his future. It is filled with suffering and adversity. In such an environment, it encourages him to better utilize mental attacks. He harms multiple fiancées, and can even get engaged to someone else again. Even women attempted to assassinate him, but in the end, they hesitated at the critical moment, because they couldn't bear to part with Shios' extraordinary looks. When Shios woke up, he cruelly ended them. Having not finished a book, Elena cast her gaze towards the door. Could it be that she's still waiting? She planned to quietly see if he had left, but a voice from behind came from my brother. I turned around and saw that he was surrounded by dark emotions. The more Elena backed away, the closer Joseph moved in. He handed over something their father had given to Ruth, asking Elena to help pass it on. But the sister just casually asked if her brother was going to hit him. Elena hurriedly covered her head. What came was not a hard blow, but a soft and fluffy touch. She realized it was Shios who blocked the attack. His face was just flushed. He apologetically said to the girl, I promised I would wait for you outside. These words struck Elena's heart deeply. She just wanted to reach out and touch his head. Shios suddenly looked up. He reached out to pat his head, comforting him. Wait for me here. Then he turned and walked straight towards Joseph. Joseph was startled. He didn't dare to say another word. He hurriedly ran away. Shios didn't intend to let him go. If he didn't get tough, next time, he will bully Elena again. Seeing him flustered and apologizing, Shios couldn't help but chuckle. What good is that useless apology? If I break your limbs and then apologize to you, would you forgive me? Only then did Elena understand. Shios wasn't blushing out of guilt, but because he felt his blood boiling and his body heating up. Joseph, who was kicked down, was furious and embarrassed. In an instant, he lunged at Seuss, who was 3 years younger than him. Unexpectedly, he was grabbed by the wrist. His arm couldn't stop trembling. The disparity in strength left him unable to move. Trying to maintain his composure, he asked him to let go. Hearing this, Seuss chuckled softly. He swung it away. How dare this weakling lay hands on him? A few kicks later, the study was filled with painful pleas for mercy. With a whimper, he kept apologizing. If he were to lose his hand because of this, there would be no place for him in the family anymore. Yet, Shoshi suddenly fell silent. That expression seemed to be observing how much force to use to torment him without knocking him out. Shoshi turned to look at the girl. One cannot just handle it his way. It's still important to listen to Elena's opinion. The person involved was already scared out of their wits. Witnessing the male lead brutally handling someone with his cute face, it made him feel once again that this is a revenge novel. Who knows, he might meet the same fate one day. At that moment, Hughes gently held his hand. He touched her forehead. After confirming she didn't have a fever, he asked with concern why her face was pale. Elena hurriedly withdrew her hand. I just got a bit of a scare. Hughes sighed helplessly. He slowly helped the girl up. He wrapped his hand around her shoulder. Then, he effortlessly picked the girl up. He muttered, you really are too weak. Elena struggled for a long time. In the end, she obediently lay on him. As a result, she accidentally fell asleep. Afterward, feeling embarrassed, she bowed to thank him for what just happened. Seeing the girl's complexion improve, shyness revealed a bright smile. However, he really wanted to ask Elena how he should handle it. Should Joseph step on his wrist again? Elena quickly stopped him. The punishment is enough. To always protect the girl. Shoes made a bold decision. He wants to take the girl to find the Duke. Elena hesitates to speak. Shoes reaches out his hand to encourage him, understanding that the girl is very afraid of the Duke. But they must do this. Even if Elena insists on not going, he will go alone. Elena has no choice but to agree reluctantly. He wants to see what the male lead has up his sleeve. But that smile still makes it hard to dislike her. Just now, the eldest daughter reported the fight to their father. Upon learning that his son was beaten without any defense, Rod picked up the oil lamp in disappointment, and suddenly threw it at his daughter. Courtney held back her fear, knowing that this was the only way to secure her position as the heir. Yet he heard from his father how great it would be if Shows were his son. He had never seen such a talented child. No matter how he thought about it, he couldn't bear to get rid of him. Why must he fulfill the Emperor's request? Although the Rod family has a pair of golden children, they have remained subservient to the royal family until now. The werewolf incarnation that took 300 years to be born. Currently, it is essentially a family affiliated with Lord Ro. Right now, this is truly the best opportunity. As long as the daughter marries His Highness Shows. Just then, the maid came to report. His Highness Shows and Miss Elena request an audience. The villain girl is developing into Hakimi. The male lead, a golden boy, combines with the werewolf lineage. The cold-blooded Duke has finally found the value of his daughter. Otherwise, it would have been almost meaningless for him to kill Elena's biological father. 10 years ago, he locked his brother in an underground prison. He couldn't even stand up. Yet his gaze was very sharp. This made him very unhappy. However, considering that his brother saved his life when he was 13, he promised to always respect Leinos as his brother. The two are identical twins, but one never smiles, while the other always has a gentle smile. A gaze that seems to want to devour him is truly rare. However, today he brought a good news to his dear brother. Your daughter has been born. Leinos shed tears of joy, constantly thanking the gods. If it's a daughter, she will be named Elena, he promised. Stacy let out an embarrassed laugh. In the Rod family, anyone other than the heir is forbidden to inherit the bloodline. But Linus fell in love with a maid, Stacy, from a fallen noble family. He even violated family rules and eloped with her. The reason they were caught was that Stacy was pregnant. After capturing Linus, Hugh broke his legs. He threatened Stacy that if she ran away, he would kill Linus. The woman from Linus had no choice but to voluntarily stay at the Duke's residence with her big belly. When Linus learned that his wife decided to stay, he also gave up on escaping. Upon discovering that the baby girl Stacy gave birth to had a pair of perfect golden eyes, Hugh ordered her to be killed. He wanted to raise Aaron as his own daughter, so getting rid of the biological parents is the best option. So he told Linus that he would spare your daughter's life. If she becomes my daughter in the future, then no one will know that the child is a crab. But the brother must die. Linus agreed without hesitation. He got up and drew his sword, personally dealing with the last hidden threat. Before dying, Leinos had blood in his mouth, but still died without regrets, saying to Hugh. Hugh didn't understand, but only thought he was foolish. In the end, Elena became his daughter. It is said that experience can not only understand emotions, but also read the future of this world. Yet the child he raised with his own hands disappointed him deeply. Elena has no abilities, and no desires. Even after multiple attempts, he was pushed to the brink of death. He still allowed his father to torment him. According to Shix, the only reward he wanted was to have Elena by his side while studying. The Duke promised him with satisfaction. He harmed his own brother, and has had Elena for 10 years now. Finally, I feel that it wasn't in vain. Just because the villain called the male lead husband, the boy gently killed his entire family. Playing house is so much fun. He wants to play with the girl for 500 years. However, the first step to winning over his wife is to tell her his weakness. Actually, I can't read. Next, he launches a fierce attack. Can you teach me, please? Aaron I wants to refuse, but I was still struck by her beauty. He secretly vowed that today would definitely be the last time. He would never meddle again. Hughes sweetly called out, Teacher Elena. The girl gasped, you called me? From now on, you need to teach me to read, so you don't have to use honorifics with me anymore. Before she could react, she is about to start a sweet makeup class. The girl stops her just in time. This makes me very uncomfortable. He hangs his head in disappointment. After successfully grasping the girl's feelings, he returns with a deep gaze. Then we don't need to use formal titles for each other. How about being soft and gentle? He just came on strong. Then you choose one. Otherwise, I can only respect you as a teacher. Or we both don't need to use honorifics. Elena had no choice but to compromise. Then Hughes, let's start the class. He immediately became as happy as a child. By evening, the class was over, as expected of the protagonist. Just one explanation, and he can draw inferences. Elena started to wonder why he was suddenly so nice to her. The boy's answer was simple, because you are nice to me too. Elena was taken aback. Her eyes were filled with pain. In the next moment, she was about to retort. Hugh advised him not to pretend anymore. Because he knew everything. The girl quickly changed the subject. The teacher said I didn't teach well, but fortunately, you are smart. He said it was fine. Through this class, it made him more certain of his thoughts. That's right, you seriously taught me. So you are a person with ambition as well. If you find the right direction in the future, you will definitely become a useful person. Because useless people will die off quickly. The girl couldn't help but feel scared. Sure enough, from this moment, Susie was no longer a normal person. He handed a book to the girl. See you tomorrow, then. A note was tucked inside the book. Teach me to read and write tomorrow as well. The handwriting is truly atrocious. Back in her room, the girl was lost in thought. Looking at Susie's recent attitude, it seems he has already considered her an ally. But she has no confidence in being by the male lead side. What can she do to make Susie give her up? So the answer is to be a person without any value. Little did he know that his seemingly perfect plan actually made the male lead completely attached to him. The next day, Elena took the initiative to invite Shios to play house. The boy panicked, of course. However, it was different from what he expected. He didn't even know what playing house was. The girl patiently explained. It's a game where children imitate adults, acting as an ordinary couple in life. Hugh said he understood, but I don't want to argue with you. He once heard you all chatting, saying that the most common thing is couples arguing. Thinking back now, Hugh never really had the chance to spend time with his parents. Elena stood up to demonstrate, drew a line with a stick. This is our home. And we are a couple who respect each other. Then pushed the boy outside. Now you just play a husband who has just come home. Seeing his stiff expression, Elena smiled with satisfaction. At this rate, the plan is halfway successful. You're back. As soon as the husband spoke, Hugh's face instantly turned bright red. He fidgeted and avoided eye contact. When the girl had prepared dinner for her husband, who would have thought Hugh actually took a bite? When it was time for bed, Elena told her not to talk. When they wake up, today's playtime will come to an end. It's a bit of a pity. Playing house is really fun. I want to play wife again tomorrow. Elena's heart couldn't stop racing. She clearly felt nothing when she called him husband. It must be because this guy is going to harm more than 10 fiancés in the future. Hugh tightened his grip. For some reason, he felt really good. Elena decided to change her plans. Starting tomorrow, playing house is prohibited. What a coincidence. The next day, Hugh was called away by the Duke. Taking this opportunity, he went to his brother's room. The injuries were worse than he had thought. So why do you have to go against Hugh's? Is self-inflicted suffering your pleasure? He's here to hear his brother apologize this time. So you're wrong. No, Joseph said quietly. Is it really wrong? His brother turned away, acting proud. Even if I sincerely apologize. Anyway, you won't forgive me. Why wouldn't I forgive you? You've already been punished, after all. Is that true? If I sincerely apologize, will you forgive me? And will you let go of my wrist? The girl who seemed calm on the surface was actually startled. The girl always thought she was a little demon. But now, seeing her so frightened, I suddenly realized she's just a child. If she truly apologizes, I would forgive her. As a result, the second brother cried even more. She's so scared of being broken by Hughes. Her wrist too. If I really become disabled, I will definitely be the first to be abandoned by father. Second brother is crying and complaining that it does him no good at all. Yet he still comes to help. You really are a foolish guy. Elena went up and just punched him. It seems you misunderstood. The reason I forgave you, it's not for you. It's for myself. Even though he really dislikes the second brother, he can't just ruin his life. Anyway, be careful from now on. Next time, I won't let you off easily. Do you understand? Joseph said he understood. I'm sorry, Elena. Fortunately, his second apology felt somewhat sincere. After the incident, the girl arrived at the small place she had arranged to meet with Shios. Hearing Elena's voice, Shios immediately turned around. He was practicing his calligraphy while waiting for the girl. Come and read it. Elena was puzzled. How could she misspell her own name? There was no choice but to demonstrate for her. But it was strange. She wrote more difficult characters so well. You did that on purpose, didn't you? Shios candidly admitted it. He wanted to see the girl write her name. The girl saw through others' emotions with her deep golden eyes. She surprisingly discovered that Shios was feeling very happy. The boy suddenly leaned in close. In the next moment, he kissed the girl's cheek. Elena stood there in a daze. So what are we going to play today? I still want to play. Her nonchalant demeanor made the girl even more nervous. Keep reminding yourself to stay alert. We need to stick to the plan. How about we observe the ants today? I'll coax the boy into thinking it's fun. But deep down, I'm thinking he will definitely find it boring this time. Let's do it. The two of them closely followed the ant trail. Following along, they arrived at the anthill. The girl suddenly realized. Wait, why am I still enjoying this? Shios also found it very interesting. At this rate, we're going to fail again. He quickly changed the subject. Your father called for you this morning. What's going on? The teacher said there's something to attend to in the capital. He asked me to go send him off. He was carefully watching my expression, afraid that the girl would be sad. But Elena didn't want to go send him off. Anyway, she successfully changed the topic. The game ends here. Are you going back so soon? It feels like he's been more clingy today. It's really heartwarming. Let's go out and play again tomorrow. The two little ones walked into the forest. It seems like something is glowing in the tree. He walked closer to take a look. His hand reached inside. He fumbled for a while. There was actually a necklace inside. Someone must have hidden it. He opened the pocket watch. The photo was of a woman who looked exactly like him. Her name was Stacy. The girl suddenly remembered something. He ran desperately toward the direction of the temple. The closer he got, the more anxious he became. They arrived at a tombstone. Stacy is his mother. I heard she died of puerperal fever right after giving birth to Elena. The current duke's legitimate wife also passed away shortly after giving birth to her sixth son. As a result, everyone calls Elena a bastard. The maids also spread rumors recklessly. However, those maids soon vanished without a trace. So, all there are about the mother are these rumors. Elena once asked her father if she had a mother, other family members, but his father told him his mother was an orphan. Yet the mother on the pocket watch clearly has a surname. Orphans can't possibly have a surname. Hugh felt that this woman must be his mother. They look so alike, especially that round face shape. Elena's face turned red from the flotation. He tried to calm the little deer that was jumping around. You are right. This person is my mother. I can feel it. Seeing the girl's happy smile, he couldn't help but smile as well. Elena held his hand tightly. If I leave here in the future, I will definitely go look for my mother, but I can't do that right now. Because the Duke hasn't given up on her yet. Shios also seriously told the girl, then I'll help you leave here. Elena was stunned for a long time, and couldn't help but get teary-eyed. It's really strange. I clearly wanted to stay away from her, but now, being so close, I actually feel very comfortable. A few days later, the Duke returned to the mansion. He immediately summoned all the children. He called out for Shios and Elena. Classes will officially start tomorrow. You two go and greet him together. In the past, my father always showed a face full of disdain towards him, but just now, I couldn't see anything. Could it be an illusion? Then the Duke opened up. Everyone left except for Elena. Even Sias had to go out. Elena didn't dare to look up at him. They haven't talked for a long time. Suddenly, the father became gentle with him. Poor child. I will give you back everything you deserve. Elena, come back to live in the main hall. The girl always thought her father was the one who killed her parents. The so-called love was just an excuse to exploit him. Little did she know, the girl had been hiding her abilities all along. His keen eyes can see through all emotions in the world. He says he loves him, but he is surrounded by sand and shadows. That's why he wouldn't be grateful to the Duke. Instead, he hopes the protagonist will quickly destroy his family. The girl no longer thinks too much. She got up and ran next door. The moment she saw Shios, the gloom on his face was swept away. He jogged to the table. He took the milk the boy handed him. As he sat down to enjoy it, Shu stared intently, and praised that the girl's outfit suited him well. So cute. He wished he could hold him tightly right now. Furious hair rubbing. Thinking too much. Elena called him several times but didn't respond. We will have class together from tomorrow. So I'll ask you if you're worried. Shu's only thinks it's very much to go to class with him. The girl took back her worries. Anyway, this world will develop according to the male protagonist's wishes. Look at him yawning several times. Hugh suggested that we sleep here together tonight. How about that? I just feel like you wouldn't want to go back to that room to sleep. Elena rubbed her eyes. It's too quiet there. She really doesn't like it. They decided to play camping games here. The two little ones started to set up their bedding. Elena couldn't help but look forward to what the night sky would be like during a real camping trip. Shu's turned to look at her. Tomorrow, let's go have a real camping adventure. The girl agreed. They both looked forward to tomorrow. At that moment, Elena had a strange premonition. Those plans seemed a bit unnecessary. Shios will not abandon himself just because he has become a useless person. For years later, the girl has become more and more beautiful. She has blossomed into a charming beauty. She rejected her second brother's invitation. Because I'm going to date Suz. The male lead, tamed by the villainess, has finally grown up. 90 years of mutual understanding has allowed them to establish a foothold in the Fong family. No words are needed. Hugh knew what he was thinking. Elena was happily eating ice cream. If he had known it was his favorite mustard flavor, he would have run even faster. Hugh asked him. The Duke said. What the girl said didn't matter. Ever since the Duke suddenly changed his attitude, he has finally begun to live the life a palace maid should have. As long as he speaks up, even if it's just to eat a dumpling, the Duke will immediately take action. Those years he was abandoned seemed to have never existed at all. Even one day, the Duke said he was his only cherished child. Although he appeared regretful, the emotions he truly felt were nothing but annoyance. But he didn't care. Because from the very beginning, his father had never reflected on anything. Not even a simple apology was ever said. Only material things were constantly given. Occasionally, he would say a few deceptive words. Therefore, the time that the older siblings longed for to have dinner alone with the Duke was just as uncomfortable for him as sitting on pins and needles. At times like this, the only thing that could ease his discomfort was the ice cream that Hughes had prepared for him. Unexpectedly, the boy was still upset, pouting and remaining sullen. Elena linked her arm with his. If it were the old Hughes, he will definitely ask him with a cute expression. But now he is completely a rebellious teenager. Thinking back now, he has indeed grown a lot. Just looking at his appearance, he is clearly a good candidate to become a stunning handsome man. He has also grown a lot taller. Clearly, they both ate the same food. But suddenly I noticed, did you grow taller again? We quickly went to measure. I didn't expect to be a head shorter. The first time we met, he was still much younger than me. And then something big happened. It almost cost them their lives. He will never forget. That day when Shios comforted the girl, she doesn't feel like she has grown taller. Elena thinks it's a pity. She wants to watch the adorable Shios a little longer. It's time for snacks. Shios noticed something was off. He seems to have never seen this maid before. The woman bowed and curtsied. She indicated that she was following the family teachings. The maid who came to the Duke's mansion. He didn't pay much attention. Just reached out to pick up a pastry. When Elena's hand slapped it back. No, you can't eat that. Shios immediately reacted. This time, Elena blindly helped Shios again. But that maid had a strong sense of hostility, stirring restlessly. Perhaps sent by the Emperor to kill Shios. Thinking of this, he instinctively stopped himself. Shios was already used to this. He suggested staying here for now. If we go out now, we will definitely be suspected. Then suddenly stared at the girl. Elena, we're in this together, right? Do I even need to say it? He smiled faintly. Trust me, Elena. I will never let my people come to any harm. The girl was taken aback for a moment. Then she nodded repeatedly. He tried hard to recall the plot of the original story, but the male protagonist's childhood story only occupies a very small part at the beginning. He only remembers that Rias was almost assassinated, and it happened more than once or twice. Elena, can you let go of my arm for a moment? The girl stepped back in panic. There is a significant difference between the novel and the current situation. Now, he has this burden of himself by his side. Hugh asked him to hide the cookies for a while, and pretend he had already eaten them. Elena nodded obediently. At least she shouldn't interfere with him. Soon, Hugh found two large dolls, and placed them on the sofa. He covered them with a blanket, to disguise them as themselves. The two quickly hid in the wardrobe. He instructed the girl not to move. He would find a chance to run out later. Don't make a sound before he calls her out. Not knowing how long had passed, the maid walked straight in. As expected, he was hiding a knife behind him. As a result, when they pulled back the blanket, they found two dolls. Only then did they realize they had been tricked. Hugh muttered a spell under his breath. Suddenly, the entire room was plunged into darkness. Elena couldn't see anything. The green veil gradually spread out to her feet, and it was two peoples. She could clearly distinguish between the two forces. Suddenly, a strange thought popped into the master's mind. What if I just step on it directly? He also wanted to do something for the boy. With one step down, the smoke instantly disappeared. The sounds from outside gradually faded away. He quietly poked his head out to take a look. To his surprise, he locked eyes with Shios. Elena was startled. She awkwardly scratched her head. Hughes was also startled. He stuttered while speaking. Everything in sight was damaged. Only the assassin's shadow was nowhere to be seen. Hughes told him that the assassin had fallen out of the window. He should be dead. But emotions can't deceive his experience. Why would he lie? The blood on the ground is not from a fall. Hughes is fearfully covering his ears. I saw the assassin get distracted, so I closed my eyes and pushed him down. The table was completely smashed. It's all because the assassin was wildly swinging his dagger. It's all his fault for being too fierce. Although Elena didn't understand, she still held his hand tightly. She praised Hughes, saying he did the right thing. It's shocking that such a small child can kill, and he wiped away all the traces completely. This scene is clearly eerie and horrifying. But no one has the right to blame Hughes. Hughes, thank you for protecting me. You are scared too, right? The boy lowered his head. He hugged Elena tightly. Yeah, I'm really scared. Elena, I hope you aren't. There was something on the tip of my tongue, but I swallowed it back. How scared was he back then to act like that? But he was quite adorable at that time. Ileana held him tightly. Are you no longer upset about what happened earlier? Hughes still pulled his arm away. Don't come so close. Recently, he has always kept his distance from me. I should have known it would turn out like this. I should have hugged the little spirit Hughes more often before. Hughes, if you continue to be this indifferent to me, I really might leave. Unexpectedly, all I got in response was do as you please. The girl started to feel a bit sad. She turned around in a huff and walked away. She heard footsteps fading further and further away, until the door was slammed shut. Hughes let out a sigh of relief. Her face turned red to the roots of her ears. She was really going crazy. She knew her behavior was foolish, but every time Elena did those things, it drove her wild. It felt like her heart had a problem. She didn't understand why she felt this way, but she didn't want to admit it. Because this kind of feeling will not receive any return. It's frustrating, but it's also a fact. If I had been a bit slower to realize how wonderful it would have been. Perhaps it was when the Duke assigned him a special task that day, that he began to sense his own heart. From the first year he stepped into the Duke's residence, he participated in a monster subjugation battle. Later, I received a simple task. If I had to say there was anything special about it, it would be Elena's involvement. The girl put on his clothes, and cheerfully pulled him out. Hugh became strange. It felt subtle. He said he wanted to wear something comfortable to move in, so I just lent him the clothes that I can no longer wear. At that time, I didn't feel much. But seeing him wear my clothes in person, why can't I take my eyes off him anymore? The girl tightly hugged his arm. I don't know how long it's been since I went out. Shu Si is still deceiving himself. This fluttering feeling should only be because I'm affected by the girl's happiness. But it's strange. Why the Duke has strictly forbidden Elena from going out. It seems even he doesn't know the reason. At that time, Hughes took the initiative to bring Elena along. Surprisingly, the Duke readily agreed. What is this typically meticulous person really planning? But seeing Elena so happy, that's all that matters. It should be fine, right? As soon as we got on the horse, the guards all fixed their gaze on the young maid. It was the first time seeing the Duke's beloved daughter. Hearing Elena laughing and joking with other men, feeling shy. They couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. They couldn't help but warn their companions that we are not here to play. He turned and spoke softly to the girl. I'll catch you a rabbit in a moment. Hughes sighed inwardly. They seemed like they were on a spring outing. But it didn't matter. At least it would be a wonderful memory for Elena. But just moments ago, the weather was sunny, and suddenly it started hailing. In such terrible weather, even though I don't want to see the girl looking so down, for safety's sake, I can only send Elena back first. This place hasn't seen a haunted house in decades. Elena should be safe. One guard should be enough for her. I thought I heard strange movements in the distance. Hughes ordered the soldiers to keep their distance, and let Elena come over to him. Elena turned around and dismounted. She casually sat in Hughes' arms. So our size difference is this significant now? Hughes could easily wrap one arm around the girl's slim waist. He focused intently, trying to sense any unusual movements. In that moment, his purple eyes faintly shimmered with golden light. It's happening now. Endless vines surge up from the ground. Shios tightly grabs the reins. He reminds the girl to hold on tight. After finding the weak point on the monster, he must throw the sword and finish it in one move. Although it's not difficult, if he wants to grab the sword, you have to let go of the reins. Or let go of the girl you are holding. If you let go of the reins, they might get thrown off the horse. There's only one chance. He has to take him down in one move. But when he saw Elena's hand let go of the reins, Houston hesitated. Has he confirmed it? Did the girl hold on tight? In the next moment, the two rolled down the slope simultaneously. Shios protected her tightly. The girl used her body as a cushion. They disappeared from the eyes of the crowd. Consciousness gradually blurred, not knowing how much time had passed. Hugh woke up first. He immediately looked at the girl in his arms. Elena, wake up quickly. In his urgent call, the girl groggily propped herself up. I'm fine. She couldn't stop the guilt and self-blame. Elena was already timid. She must have been scared to death. I meant to give her a complete and happy day. Instead, the girl is smiling brightly. We look quite funny right now. After saying that, she stood up and brushed off the dust. Hugh is very puzzled. Why do you look so nonchalant? You almost died just now. Are you really okay? If you feel uncomfortable, just say it. I just didn't expect it. Elena's trust is much stronger than she thought. With you by my side, what else do I have to worry about? Come hold my hand. Let's find a place to hide from the rain. Okay, got it. The two of them walked under the tree to avoid the rain. Hugh stole a glance at the girl. You're really not hurt, right? He waved his hand. Not even a scratch. It seems they will have to stay here for the night. The girl said she was fine, but her expression showed she wasn't worried at all. Being trusted by the girl like this, he was very happy. But looking back after a long time, this kind of hardship will also become a memory, right? Strangely enough, the girl didn't respond to him. Elena, don't you think so? The girl awkwardly scratched her head. Even so, memories need to be remembered forever. Shios found that he always excluded himself from his own conversations, as if he didn't exist in the future at all. Yet in the future that Shios envisioned, Elena was always present, and the girl always referred to him as someone who would leave one day. This is our first excursion together. How could I possibly forget? The girl suddenly realized. Yeah, this is my first time being outside. Hugh's anger was instantly extinguished. She had no reason to be angry. She could only awkwardly tell the girl, just remember this well. I definitely won't forget it. Elena smiled cheerfully. If we don't freeze to death here. That's when Shios realized. He suddenly cupped the girl's face. Her lips were turning purple. Her body was terrifyingly cold. Gradually, drowsiness began to set in. Shios felt a jolt in his heart. He pulled the girl close to his shoulder, leaning against him for warmth. His body temperature did not drop, all thanks to the blood of the gods. But as the night deepened, the temperature dropped even lower. The girl showed no signs of warming up. He had no choice but to use his own body for warmth. They had done this countless times since they were young. But now, for some reason, his heart won't stop racing. He held the girl even tighter. Yet his heart still pounded like a drum. He even began to worry that the sound of his heartbeat would wake her up. It was just sharing some body heat. It really wasn't a big deal. Yet all night long, he was on edge. The unintentional glance back made him realize even more that the feelings had already changed in nature, and could no longer be as pure as before. The tighter he held his heart, the more the happy restlessness grew. It's really funny, knowing that Elena's envisioned future has no place for her. Yet he couldn't help but be moved. It was like falling in love for the first time, only to be dumped immediately. No wonder I don't know when I started to hesitate to hold her casually. Thinking back now, maybe falling in love with Elena was inevitable. Since coming to this twisted family, Elena has been her only one. She willingly wants to give everything to the girl. I didn't expect that my own heart was included here. What should I do with you, Elena? In fact, she already had the answer in her heart. Elena must accept me. But how can I make her accept me? The next day, after returning home, the girl caught a serious cold, and it seems that Shios also caught a fever. This surprised Elena. She didn't expect to encounter Shios again after her recovery, but he suddenly changed his temperament. She became cold and distant. Elena reached out to reconcile first. He ignored her. Thinking about it, his recent emotions have been very off. Elena's golden eyes can read anyone's feelings, but for the past few months, he has been unable to see through Hugh's emotions. He cannot understand the meaning behind them. Ever since they spent the night in the wild, Hugh's demeanor has become strange. Originally, Hugh's emotions were pure and clear, but after that night, they suddenly mixed with a somber tone. There was unease, anxiety, worry, and tension, among other things. These are all negative emotions. Doesn't Shios feel annoyed when he sees him now? He thought that Shios still liked him a bit, even if it was just a little, but now it seems like he is no longer the only one. Why has it turned out this way? After months of deep thinking, he came to a conclusion. That means Zeus is going through puberty. That makes sense. The symptoms of puberty are indeed confusion. If you look closely at Zeus's emotional fluctuations, most of them are actually happy emotions. So they are just temporarily on different paths. As long as some time passes, our relationship will surely return to how it was before. Today, Shoshi prepared ice cream for him as usual. He didn't respond properly. He was too busy eating. The more he thought about it, the more he felt it was his fault. After living for so long, why was he still quarreling with him over such trivial matters? He didn't want to create a rift with Shoshi over something so minor. It wasn't just because Shoshi was the male lead who would eventually destroy the family. It was because they were close friends who had grown up together. At the same time, he is the only person she cherishes. Although one day they will go their separate ways, there's no need to start drifting apart so early. Elena ran to Hugh's room. He was still there, but seemed to be asleep. She carefully walked into the room. Are you asleep? Hugh answered with his eyes closed, saying he was asleep. Elena rushed over. In a flash, she lay down beside him. The two looked at each other. The next second, they couldn't hold it in. They burst into laughter. Hugh apologized first. The girl immediately frowned. I was supposed to apologize to you first. You actually took away my chance to apologize. I'm starting to get angry. Shios tenderly apologizes again. The girl hugs him, whispering in his ear incessantly. But Shios isn't really listening. Instead, he's very aware of their distance. The girl suddenly looks up, making him more embarrassed. Elena also saw that complicated emotion with her own eyes. He wisely turned over. He is a teenage boy, after all. I have to be careful. Did you forget to tell me something? The girl suddenly remembered. Father said there would be an exam soon. Although Hughes is not a candidate for the Rod inheritance, his father still had him prepare for the exam. To test Hughes's limits. Elena felt heartbroken. Although this plot point is meant to embellish Hughes's future. For him personally, the fate is not optimistic. On the contrary, it is very cruel. Although I don't want to participate, I can't just not do it because I don't want to. Hughes mumbled to himself. He will definitely have to face things harder than this in the future. He must overcome this level. Elena said. Hughes once said, there will come a day when he has to find his place again. This also includes revenge against his half-brother. It's just who he is. Whatever he wants, he must have it to be satisfied. Hugh doesn't want to tell the girl for now. Elena chuckled. In this world, no one understands you better than I do. Little do they know, the boy is thinking about how to get him. Elena, why are you sitting further away? Before the girl could react, Hughes directly grabbed his wrist. With a thud, the two of them lay down together. Since just now, why have you been moving away from me? Stay by my side, and with the villain. The girl lies on the same bed, but the male lead pretends to be asleep on purpose. The girl sneaks into his arms. Can't help but reminisce about childhood. Hugh was just like this back then. When I grow up, I want to be with you like this every day. Elena was completely captivated by his cuteness. She didn't know when it started, but he had become her beloved. Lying shoulder to shoulder with the male lead who would one day kill him. The girl was no longer as afraid of him as before, but rather more afraid of Shio's leaving her. Yes, by that time, even if he didn't want to see her, he wouldn't be able to. You should take this chance to look at him properly. Today, Shio seems particularly radiant. Perhaps it's because the sunlight is shining on his silver hair. At this moment, Shio suddenly spoke up. Do you really like my face that much? Startled, the girl jumped up. She shyly looked away. Shio smiled indulgently. You've been admiring my face since just now, haven't you? Caught off guard by the comment, Elena's face turned completely red. The two exchanged banter back and forth. The girl standing there pouted and turned her head away. Hugh knew very well that Elena had been infatuated with her face since she was little. She had secretly said how cute she was many times, all of which she heard. Even now, she often stared at her. What a blessing. This means she has successfully grown up to be the way girls like. Elena, about that exam you mentioned. If I can pass it smoothly, Will you grant me one wish, okay? The girl was confused. Why suddenly talk about wishes? Hughes said it had to do with him. The girl stared at him intently. She needed to think carefully before answering. He tentatively asked what she wanted. If she said it now, it would lose its meaning. Don't worry, I won't say anything too extreme either. The girl had an ominous premonition, but she felt guilty about refusing. Hughes Zhoshen is not only surrounded by a joyful glow, but also by some urgent aura. I just feel that if there's a reward, I would work harder during the exam. Isn't that okay? It seems like he wants the reward from himself more than the one given by the Duke. In the end, the girl compromised. Hugh was so excited that his eyes sparkled. Really? Then it settled. The girl didn't expect him to be so happy. She definitely didn't agree just because of his pretty face. But are you really not going to tell me what the wish is? Shio spoke meaningfully. It's a secret for now. There are only 7 days left until the exam. The Duke has ordered all candidates to change their daily routines. But there were no requirements set for Elena. Everyone is guessing that Elena will be excluded from this exam, just because she is the beloved daughter of the Duke. However, this kind of treatment, even if he lived a lifetime of hardship, he would never get used to it. At that moment, his brother suddenly appeared. What are you doing standing there all alone? That Sundro brother meant to show concern, but it came out as sharp words. Elena immediately stood up, and was about to leave. But her brother insisted on keeping her there. The girl was speechless. With less than 7 days until the air exam, how can you still have the leisure to come here? Joseph found his sister's way of addressing him particularly jarring. She should call him brother. After all, she treated him this way. How could he not be angry? Could it be that she really wasn't here to pick a fight this time? Then what are you doing here? He sighed, scratching his head in helplessness. Elena wouldn't call him brother. I came today, just to be a brother for you this once. Then he instructed the maid to step out and patted the seat next to him, gesturing for his sister to come over. Anyone who didn't know would think they were such friendly siblings. For the next week, be sure not to do anything attention-grabbing. The girl felt he wasn't as dangerous as before. It really sounds like advice. Joseph repeatedly urged, not to get too close to Hughes. The girl didn't understand, but her brother just told her to listen to him as her brother. Especially in front of Courtney, she had to be extra careful. From today on, no matter the situation, stay far away. Come on, repeat after me. The girl knows better than anyone how much Sister Courtney hates herself. Her situation suddenly turned upside down. As siblings vying for inheritance, the siblings definitely resent their father's unfair treatment. But among these two, Joseph is relatively easy to get along with. Joseph was quite frank about his jealousy towards his father's sudden favoritism. But there was no hatred. Seeing his sister lost in thought, he loudly reminded her to pay attention to what their brother said, and quickly answered yes. Elena found it strange, wondering why he was suddenly so kind to remind her. Could it be that deep down in your heart, you actually care a lot for your little sister? Joseph stuttered in his rebuttal. Absolutely not. The brother's words were Sundra, but the shyness surrounding him revealed his true feelings. After Elena forgave him, he started coming to find me from time to time. You'll talk nonsense again. I'll leave. The girl smiles. No. Wait, don't do this. Why even Shoes must hide? Brother wants to speak but stops. After thinking for a long time, Courtney doesn't like you and Shoes getting close to each other. The girl noticed with astonishment that her brother was lying. He was deliberately concealing the real reason. But if she continued to ask, it felt like he would truly leave. She had to pretend to give up. In the Empire, one could officially inherit the family business at the age of 20. But Courtney had yet to gain her father's approval. At such times, the Duke's special treatment made her sister dislike him even more. Seeing her sister with a furrowed brow, Joseph asked her what her plans were. The girl decided to stick to the plan. For the next week, she would try to avoid her sister. Though it was very frustrating, it felt quite helpless, but there was no choice. For now, this was the wisest choice. The Duke had explicitly forbidden him from learning any skills, so he never had the chance to learn swordsmanship. He also couldn't develop a tolerance to poison. But the girl did not intend to stay away from Hughes. She directly ignored her brother. Joseph, who couldn't persuade her, sighed. I warned you clearly. I told you to stay away from Hughes. As soon as the words fell, the person involved appeared behind him. The man's intent to kill instantly arose, scaring the two siblings. Brother Shirhan quickly stood up to deny it, but his grip only tightened. Joseph was at a loss for words. Elena had no choice but to step in and explain. Gently move the bamboo horse's hand. Can we let go of our hands and talk first? Shio stared at the girl, pondering for a long time. Then he fixed his gaze on Joseph. He scoffed disdainfully and said, let's talk. He said okay out loud, yet the atmosphere around was subtly unsettling. Elena pulled her hand. You sit down first. Hugh has lost his temper. He obediently follows the girl's instructions. His brother, standing by, is filled with hesitation. Wishing you a pleasant time. Without waiting for the male lead to react, she takes off running. Seeing Hugh about to chase the girl, he immediately tackles him. Forget it, I'll take care of this. You should hurry and leave. Brother is hesitating again. Seeing this, the girl tells him if you appreciate me, don't let anything happen during the exam. Come back safely for me. I will definitely win against everyone. I'll come back in glory. After saying that, he hurriedly ran away. There is such a foolish brother. The one suffering can only be him. Right now, there are more urgent matters. Shows is being pressed tightly under the girl. He immediately bounced back and apologized. Yet he didn't notice the blush rising on the other person's face. He began to babble on with explanations. I hope the male lead doesn't misunderstand that I'm the same as him. I don't want to leave him. Then, Ryosi suddenly stood up, covering his flushed face. He stammered, saying he understood. Let's talk next time. After that, he turned and left quickly. Elena was very surprised. It was too sudden. I couldn't even try to hold on. But the color of the emotions seems a bit different from anger. It should be a little shy. The girl let out a deep sigh. Although the eyes can see the emotions, I just can't understand them. Adolescents really are hard to understand. As a result, throughout the day, he didn't see Susie at all. In the morning, he said he had no appetite. In class, he said he was preparing to cultivate. By noon, he had already finished eating and left. It must be because of what happened yesterday. He's deliberately avoiding me. At this point, he also won't be polite anymore. Shouting Hugh's name in the hallway, coincidentally ran into her brother. He advised the girl to go back to her room quickly, so as to avoid running into Courtney. Reluctantly, the girl had no choice but to go back first. As soon as she looked up, I found someone standing at my door. A cunning old fox I've been since childhood. Yet I'm a hopeless romantic to death. The male lead hides during the day, only willing to take the initiative at night. The girl is about to go crazy. How can he not get angry when he sees this face? The drooping ears made him even more frantic. Hughes lowered his gaze. He softly apologized. I don't know how to face you, so I can only hide from you for now. But I also feel that what I'm doing is wrong. He didn't dare to look directly at the girl. It made the atmosphere around them quite strange. Elena sighed. Even though I don't know what you've done to wrong me, the fact that you came to find me makes it all okay. Because for me, what hurts the most is you avoiding me. The girl's unconditional forgiveness made Hughes feel even more ashamed. This moment of emotional fluctuation was perfectly captured by his experience. Although she can understand everyone's emotions, the girl does not understand Hughes' love. When they looked up and met each other's eyes, his expression seemed to have something to say. But Hughes merely said softly, actually, there's special to say. The girl exclaimed, wow, I just saw such a big emotional fluctuation in myself. He actually didn't blink while lying. If it were before, he would have looked at me with a pair of anxious eyes. He would have been at a loss. When did he become so good at acting? The girl leaned in closely. Could it be that you have some dissatisfaction with me? Hughes reached out to her. What could I possibly be unhappy about with you? You're so well behaved. Even though your hair is a mess, the atmosphere has eased a lot. The girl tidied her hair, while mumbling, you old fox. You want to get away with this again? I'll let you off this time. Hughes suddenly sighed. Sometimes you're smart and clever, and other times you act like a child. They say rotors are good at reading others' hearts. Are you like that too? The smile on the girl's face gradually stiffened. I can understand emotions by myself. I never told anyone from childhood to adulthood. People usually find it very off-putting. So he feared that if Rias knew the truth, he would dislike him too. When he was lost in thought, Rias interrupted him. Sorry, I misspoke. Actually, you are nothing like Rod. The girl chuckled. She poked at Hughes. She comforted him, saying she wasn't angry about it. You don't need to take it too seriously. But if you still feel bad about it, then when you're ready to talk, just secretly tell me what you did wrong. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. The butler personally informed. I thought the Duke was looking for Hughes, but it turned out to be Elena. Coincidentally, my brother was also waiting at the office door. The emotions that slipped out through the crack of the door were filled with anger and intensity. He always had a foreboding feeling. At that moment, my elder sister suddenly opened the door. You two over there, come in immediately. Because of a pair of dark-haired golden boys, the older sister wants to kill her out of anger. The inheritance exam is approaching. The younger sister, who barely survives relying on the male lead, is coldly approved by her father to participate in the exam. If there are no results within a week, then she will stay there forever. The man observes through experience that the reactions of the three children are different. One is confused, one is extremely angry, and the last one, though unable to see through it, is already trembling in fear. For Elena, this is undoubtedly a death sentence. Seeing the fear in his little daughter's eyes, the father smiled satisfyingly. So in this test, the one who achieves the best results will gain the position of heir. As soon as the father left, he was cornered by Courtney. With his shoulders pinned down and unable to move, he tried to push the other party away, but it completely provoked his sister's killing intent. Everyone says that father wants to give you the position of heir, but why have you been acting so confused? I thought as long as I got through this year, the position of heir would definitely belong to him. No matter how much father favored Elena, he could endure it. He just wants the power to dominate everyone. But now everyone is secretly discussing that the Duke might give the entire family to Elena. Father pretends not to hear. As a result, the rumor spreads like wildfire. She advises herself not to care. But what if it is true? What if Elena already knows the outcome, and is deliberately spreading this rumor? She questioned Elena if that was the case. The girl shook her head decisively. The difference in strength and size is too great. She was about to suffocate. The tears welling up in her eyes made Courtney even angrier. Since childhood, you've stuck to Hughes like a parasite. In the end, you still benefited from her. Elena, who was originally nothing at all, it was only because he caught the eye of Hughes that he had the opportunity to compete for Rod's supreme position. I should have claimed that position first. At that time, it would have been easy to take his side. After all, compared to Elena, he had no shortcomings at all. So I just didn't realize Hughes's value sooner. If it weren't for Elena, that's right, as long as it's not you, that position would definitely be mine.